Communication is power. It can open doors or close them. It can build trust or destroy it. Every word you speak shapes how the world sees you. This book will teach you to speak with clarity, confidence, and calm. You'll learn how to connect deeply, not just communicate. Because great communication isn't about saying more. It's about saying what matters. Stay with me till the end. And make sure to subscribe, because your journey to mastering the art of communication begins right here. Chapter 1. The Foundation of Powerful Communication. Every great communicator starts with one thing: awareness. Before words, before tone, before style comes understanding. You can't master communication until you understand what it truly is. It's not about talking. It's about connection. People think communication is only what you say, but real communication is what people feel when you say it. It's emotion transferred through energy. It's presence expressed through voice. It's your inner state made visible through language. That's why the foundation of powerful communication doesn't begin in your mouth. It begins in your mind. The words you speak are only reflections of what you think, what you feel, and what you believe. If your mind is cluttered, your message will be too. If your emotions are scattered, your tone will carry confusion. If your thoughts lack clarity, your listener will lose focus. The power of communication begins with alignment. Your thoughts, emotions, and words moving in the same direction. That's when speech becomes influence. When you're aligned, you don't have to try to sound confident. Confidence flows naturally because your voice matches your intention. You don't force clarity, you are clarity. The foundation of great communication rests on three pillars: self-awareness, presence, and empathy. Self-awareness means knowing what you want to express before you speak. You understand your purpose. You know your emotional state. You're not reacting, you're responding. When you speak from awareness, your words carry weight. They sound grounded. They feel controlled. They connect. Presence is the second pillar. Most people don't really communicate. They just wait for their turn to talk. Their minds wander while others speak. Their focus drifts between words and distractions. But true presence means being here, complete, your mind and body both tuned into the moment. When you're present, people feel it. They sense your attention. Your eyes, your tone, your silence, everything says, "I'm listening." Presence creates respect before a single word leaves your mouth. It makes people trust you, even when you haven't said much. The third pillar is empathy. It's the ability to feel what the other person feels, to understand before you answer, to connect before you convince. Empathy is what makes communication human. Without it, words are noise. When you combine awareness, presence, and empathy, your words start to carry power. You stop forcing connection. It happens naturally. The best communicators are not the best talkers. They're the best listeners. They listen before they speak. They observe before they act. They study the room, the mood, the rhythm. They read energy, not just language. You can say the same sentence in two different tones. One builds trust, the other builds walls. That's why communication is not just skill, it's sensitivity. The most powerful speakers don't perform. They feel their message. They feel their audience. They feel their moment. Every sound that comes out of them carries meaning, because it comes from truth. Truth is the strongest foundation of all communication. When your words are honest, your tone carries strength. When your message is real, your silence speaks louder than noise. You can't fake truth, and you don't need to. People don't connect with perfection. They connect with authenticity. That's why great communicators sound natural. They're not memorizing scripts. They're expressing clarity. They don't sound rehearsed. They sound real. At work, at home, or anywhere you go, communication defines your identity. It decides whether people see you as confident or insecure, as reliable or uncertain, as inspiring or intimidating. But communication is not magic. It's a muscle, and like any muscle, It strengthens with practice. Every time you speak with awareness, you train that muscle. Every time you pause before reacting, you sharpen control. Every time you listen fully, you expand connection. These moments add up, and slowly, you build communication that feels effortless, because it's honest. The foundation of powerful communication also lies in emotional regulation. You can't deliver clarity when you're driven by chaos. When you're angry, you lose empathy. When you're anxious, you lose flow. When you're afraid, you lose presence. Mastering communication begins with mastering emotion. Before you open your mouth, stabilize your heart, because your emotional tone will always leak through your words. Even if your sentence is polite, your tone can betray frustration. Even if your words are calm, your body can show tension. That's why balance matters, because words are only 7% of communication. The rest is energy, tone, posture, rhythm, eye contact. Your body is constantly speaking. It tells the truth about your emotions. So learn to listen to yourself before you speak to others. Powerful communicators speak less from memory and more from awareness. They don't think, "What should I say?" They ask, "What needs to be said?" That's the difference between noise and influence. And remember, communication is not a performance, it's a relationship. It's not about impressing others, it's about connecting with them. People don't remember how perfect your grammar was. They remember how you made them feel. Clarity comes from simplicity. Confidence comes from honesty. Connection comes from empathy. When these three meet, communication becomes effortless. If you want to build lasting influence, stop focusing only on how you sound. Start focusing on what you mean. Because words without intention are like echoes, they fade. But words spoken from truth, they stay. In this book, you'll learn how to sharpen that truth, how to speak with balance and depth, how to build trust through tone, and how to command attention through calmness. But before all of that, remember this: communication starts inside you. If your inner voice is clear, your outer voice will follow. The foundation of powerful communication is not external. It's emotional alignment. You speak better when you think better. You connect better when you feel balanced. You influence better when you listen deeply. That's where mastery begins. Not in fancy words, not in memorized speeches, but in truth. When you speak from truth, you don't need volume. You have presence. You don't need control. You have calm. You don't need approval. You have authenticity. And that, right there, is the foundation of powerful communication. Chapter 2. Building connection through presence. Presence is power. It's the invisible force that makes people stop and listen. It's what separates a voice that's heard from a voice that's felt. You can have the best words, the best ideas, the perfect tone, but without presence, it all fades into background noise. Presence is not about being loud. It's about being here, fully, completely, undistracted. In a world full of noise, presence is rare. That's why it's magnetic. When you speak with true presence, people lean in. They sense something different. A calm focus that feels powerful but never forced. Presence is not something you do. It's something you become. It's what happens when your mind, your body, and your emotions all move in the same direction. No tension. No pretending. Just pure awareness of the moment. That's what builds connection. Because people don't connect with your words. They connect with your energy. If your mind is scattered, they feel it. If your attention drifts, they notice it. If your presence is divided, the bond breaks. But when you're truly there, your silence speaks louder than noise. You don't even have to say much. Just your presence makes people feel seen, heard, and valued. That's the magic of connection. Every great communicator understands this. They don't rush their sentences. They don't interrupt. They don't wait for their turn to talk. They listen deeply, patiently. They give others the space to breathe, the space to express, the space to feel safe. Presence creates safety, and safety creates trust. When someone feels your full attention, they open up. They share truth. They drop the mask. That's how relationships form. That's how influence grows. Presence isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. When you're present, you notice small things that others miss. The tone behind the words, the hesitation before agreement, the emotion behind silence. You start reading what's unspoken, and that changes everything. True communication happens between words. It's in the glance that reassures, the pause that respects, the tone that comforts. Presence is what allows you to feel those things in real time. At work, this skill is gold. It turns meetings into meaningful exchanges. It turns leadership into influence. It turns conversations into collaboration. When people feel your presence, they trust your direction. Because they don't just hear your words, they feel your conviction. Presence doesn't demand attention. It earns it. Think of the people who speak quietly, but command the room. They don't rush. They don't try to dominate. They simply exist with focus. That's real confidence, silent, grounded, unshakable. Presence is built in stillness. It's born in moments when you slow down and notice life. You can't be present if you're always reacting. You can't connect if you're always rushing. Pause, breathe, observe. Every pause gives your mind a chance to sync with the moment. That's where authenticity enters. When your body language matches your tone, and your tone matches your heart, people trust you instantly. That's what presence does. It aligns everything inside you. The truth is, presence isn't about time. It's about attention. 5 minutes of full presence can do more for a relationship than 5 hours of distracted conversation. So when you speak, be all in. When you listen, be all in. Don't think about what you'll say next. Don't check your phone. Don't plan your reply while the other person is still talking. Just listen completely. Let silence do its work. Because silence is part of communication too. It shows patience. It shows care. It shows discipline. Presence builds respect without asking for it. It tells people you value them enough to give your most precious thing, your attention. And that's what everyone is starving for. Attention that feels real. When you give that, you stand out instantly. Because attention is the purest form of love in communication. Presence also sharpens perception. When you are aware, you catch what others miss. You notice the shift in mood, the subtle discomfort, the small change in tone that reveals truth. That awareness lets you adjust your approach, so your words fit the moment perfectly. This is what great communicators do. They don't speak one way to everyone. They adapt. They feel. They adjust. Because communication is not fixed, it's fluid. Presence helps you flow with it, not fight it. It also protects your emotional balance. When you're present, you stop carrying yesterday into today. You stop worrying about what's next. You respond to now. And now is where real communication lives. People will forget your sentences, but they'll never forget your presence. It's how you made them feel safe. How you made them feel heard. How you made them feel seen. That's why presence matters more than performance. Even the most perfect speech means nothing if your energy feels distracted or detached. But a simple, honest conversation, delivered with full awareness, can change how someone sees you forever. Presence can't be faked. It can't be copied. It must be lived. And once you live it, everything you say becomes more powerful. When your mind is still, your message becomes sharp. When your energy is calm, your words sound certain. When your presence is real, your influence becomes natural. That's how connection is built. Presence creates the bridge. Communication keeps it strong. So before you learn to speak better, learn to be better in your presence. Because presence is communication without words. And sometimes, it's the only thing people need from you. Chapter 3. The Power of Listening. Everyone wants to be heard, but very few people are truly listened to. That's the hidden truth about communication. Most people talk to reply, not to understand. We live in a world that glorifies speaking, but listening is where real power lives. Listening is not passive. It's not silence out of politeness. It's an act of deep connection. When you listen, you tell someone, "You matter enough for me to pause my world and enter yours." That is rare. That is powerful. Because real listening is not just with the ears, it's with the heart. You can hear words without ever understanding them. But when you listen, you begin to feel the emotion behind the words. You start to notice the pauses, the tones, the hesitations. You start hearing what isn't being said. That's where real communication begins, between what's spoken and what's felt. Listening builds trust faster than any speech. It's how respect is born. When people feel heard, they stop defending. They open up. They soften. And in that moment, connection becomes possible. You don't need to fix them. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to listen. At work, listening is leadership. It shows maturity. It shows presence. It shows control. Anyone can talk. Few can hold space. Holding space means allowing others to express themselves without interruption, without judgment, without trying to control the direction. When you do that, people relax. They start trusting you more. And that trust gives your words more weight when you finally speak. Listening is not weakness. It's strategy. It gives you information others miss. It lets you understand emotion beneath reaction. It helps you respond wisely instead of reacting impulsively. That's emotional intelligence in motion. Every good communicator knows that silence is part of the conversation. Silence gives people time to think. It allows emotion to breathe. It shows that you're not rushing the moment. When you interrupt someone, you say, "My thoughts are more important than yours." But when you listen, you say, "You matter." That simple difference changes the entire tone of communication. Good listeners don't just listen to words. They listen to tone. They listen to emotion. They listen to the energy behind every sentence. They watch eyes, posture, hands. They notice shifts in energy. They sense the moment when someone feels seen and when they feel invisible. That's mastery. Listening builds empathy. You start understanding perspectives beyond your own. You start realizing that not every disagreement is conflict. Sometimes it's just two truths trying to meet in the middle. When you listen deeply, you learn that everyone's story makes sense to them, and that awareness creates compassion. Listening is also discipline. It requires patience in a world addicted to speed. It requires focus in a world addicted to distraction. It's easier to scroll than to sit. It's easier to talk than to listen. That's why listeners stand out, because they offer what's rare, attention. And attention is the purest form of respect. In the workspace, teams that listen grow faster, because listening reveals ideas that loud voices usually bury. It prevents mistakes. It strengthens relationships. Leaders who listen don't just lead, they inspire. They make people feel valued. And when people feel valued, they give their best. The truth is, listening is a mirror of your character. How well you listen says more about you than how well you speak. Listening requires humility. It means saying, "I don't know everything." It means being open enough to learn from anyone, no matter their title or background. The best communicators listen before they decide. They gather perspectives. They consider emotions. Then they respond with clarity and fairness. That's why people trust them. Listening also heals conflict. Most arguments aren't about who's right. They're about who feels unheard. Once people feel heard, their anger loses its fuel. Their defenses fall, and solutions appear naturally. That's the power of listening. It transforms tension into understanding. Listening takes courage too, because sometimes what you hear will challenge your beliefs. Sometimes it will make you uncomfortable. But that's how growth happens, through discomfort, not avoidance. If you only listen to what you agree with, you're not listening. You're waiting for confirmation. Real listening expands your world. It gives you perspective you didn't know you needed. And once you develop that, you stop reacting emotionally to everything. You start understanding where people are coming from. That understanding makes you calmer, wiser, more centered. Listening is also leadership of emotion. You control the space with patience. You influence energy with presence. People begin to trust your silence because they know it means you're thinking, not ignoring. And when you finally speak, your words land deeper because they come from reflection, not reaction. Listening is communication without ego. It's the art of putting understanding before expression. That doesn't mean your voice doesn't matter. It means you know when to use it. Sometimes, the best thing you can say is nothing. Sometimes, silence is the most powerful answer. Because silence creates space for truth to appear. So, slow down. Look people in the eyes. Let them speak fully. Listen until they finish, not until you think of your next sentence. When you listen this way, people will remember you differently. Not as the one who spoke the most, but as the one who made them feel understood. Listening is not a talent. It's a choice, a daily habit, a decision to put understanding above reaction. If you want to master communication, start here, not with your voice, but with your ears. Because your listening builds the foundation for everything else. And when you truly listen, you don't just hear words, you hear people, you hear hearts, you hear stories. That's how communication becomes connection. That's how connection becomes trust. And that's how trust becomes influence. Listening doesn't make you quiet. It makes you powerful in a way noise never could. Chapter 4. Speaking with clarity and confidence. Clarity is power. Confidence is presence. When you combine both, your words stop being words. They become impact. Most people speak to fill silence, but great communicators speak to create understanding. Every word carries intention. Every pause carries weight. Every tone carries emotion. That's what makes your speech unforgettable. Speaking clearly doesn't mean speaking fast. It means speaking with purpose. When your mind is clear, your message flows naturally. But when your thoughts are tangled, your words stumble. The truth is, communication is reflection. Your speech mirrors your state of mind. If you're calm, your words land softly. If you're confident, your words carry power. If you're scattered, your audience feels lost. That's why clarity begins long before you open your mouth. It begins with intention. Ask yourself, what do I want to say? Why does it matter? How do I want people to feel when they hear it? These questions bring your message into focus. Because confidence without clarity is noise. And clarity without confidence is silence. You need both. A clear message and the courage to deliver it. Speaking with confidence is not about volume. It's about conviction. You don't have to shout to sound powerful. You just have to believe what you say. Confidence is quiet strength. It's the calm in your tone, the steadiness in your breathing, the peace in your eyes. When you speak with that energy, people trust you, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Real confidence doesn't come from rehearsing words. It comes from owning your truth. You're not trying to impress. You're expressing what matters. That authenticity builds authority faster than any fancy vocabulary ever could. Clarity also means keeping things simple. Complex words don't make you smart, they make you distant. Simplicity connects. It makes your message accessible. It allows your audience to see your meaning without confusion. Great speakers translate complexity into clarity. They don't try to sound superior. They try to sound understood. That's what leadership communication feels like. It's not about showcasing knowledge. It's about transferring understanding. When people understand you, they follow you. Confidence grows from preparation. Clarity grows from awareness. And, together, they create presence. When you prepare deeply, you earn the right to speak with calm authority, because you no longer fear being asked questions. You've already asked them to yourself. That's what real preparation does. It removes panic and replaces it with peace. The moment you trust your message, your body aligns with it. Your tone becomes smoother. Your movements become natural. Your eyes stay steady. You're no longer performing, you're being. And that's when people listen. They can feel when you're faking it. They can sense when your words don't match your energy. But they can also sense when you mean every syllable. That's clarity. That's confidence. To speak clearly, you must first think clearly. To speak confidently, you must first believe deeply. And belief comes from knowing your subject, knowing your intention, knowing your value. The problem is, most people don't speak from knowing, they speak from fear. Fear of judgment, fear of mistakes, fear of silence. But fear is just misplaced focus. You're focusing on yourself instead of your message. When you shift focus from how do I sound to how can I serve, everything changes. Because confidence grows when your purpose becomes bigger than your insecurity. If your goal is to help, teach, or inspire, you stop obsessing about how you look or sound. You start focusing on how your words help others, and that's when authenticity takes over. Clarity also means eliminating filler. Every unnecessary word weakens your message. Speak slower. Pause intentionally. Let silence hold your strength. Silence is not weakness. It's part of your rhythm. Every great speaker uses pauses as punctuation. They let words breathe. They let meaning land. Confidence is not rushing to fill space. Confidence is being comfortable with it. When you pause, you create anticipation. When you speak slowly, you sound certain. And certainty is what people listen to. Clarity also lives in structure. Know where your message begins and where it ends. People don't remember everything you say. They remember how you made them feel and the clarity of your main point. One strong message is better than 10 scattered thoughts. Confidence grows when you stop chasing approval. You don't need everyone to agree. You just need to stay honest. When you speak from truth, disagreement doesn't shake you, because you're not pretending. You're standing on integrity. That's what audiences feel. Strength without aggression, calm without passivity. If you want your message to resonate, match your tone to your intention. Speak with warmth when you want to comfort. Speak with firmness when you need to lead. Speak with passion when you want to inspire. The wrong tone can destroy a right message, but the right tone can heal a wrong moment. That's why self-awareness matters so much in speaking. You must know how you're coming across, not just what you're saying, but how you're saying it. Are you sounding defensive? Are you rushing? Are you disconnected from your own emotion? Clarity means adjusting in real time. Confidence means staying centered while doing it. The best speakers read the room, not to change themselves, but to connect better. They know that communication is not about control. It's about alignment. When you align your words with your energy and your purpose, your voice becomes unstoppable. In conversations, confidence also means listening first. The more you listen, the better you speak. Because clarity is built on understanding, not assumption. When you speak after truly listening, your message becomes precise. It hits where it should. It lands where it matters. Confidence grows from experience. Every time you speak, you learn something new about others, about yourself. You learn that mistakes don't ruin you. They reveal you. They show your humanity. People don't need perfect. They need real. And real is what confidence looks like. At its core, speaking with clarity and confidence is about authenticity. It's about showing up without armor. It's about standing in truth without fear. Your message doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be honest. Your tone doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be present. Confidence is when your inner voice finally says, I belong here. And clarity is when your message finally says, this is what I mean. Together they build influence that lasts. So before every conversation, before every speech, before every word, pause, breathe, Center yourself. And remember, your voice is not just sound, it's energy. When used with clarity and confidence, it can move hearts, change minds, and build bridges where walls once stood. That is the true art of communication. Not noise, but meaning. Not perfection, but presence. Not performance, but truth. Chapter 5. Handling difficult conversations with emotional control. Difficult conversations are inevitable. No matter how skilled you are, how kind you are, or how calm you try to stay, there will always come a moment when words carry tension. Maybe it's a disagreement with a colleague. Maybe it's feedback that's hard to deliver. Maybe it's a relationship that's slipping into silence. These are the moments that test your communication. Not the easy ones, but the heavy ones. Anyone can speak when things are smooth, but only a few can speak wisely when emotions rise. That's where emotional control becomes your strength. Because communication isn't just what you say. It's how you handle what happens after you say it. When emotions take over, clarity disappears. The louder your feelings, the quieter your wisdom becomes. In difficult conversations, control is not about suppression. It's about direction. You don't bury your emotion. You guide it. You let it move through you without letting it decide for you. That's emotional maturity. And that's where powerful communication lives. When you stay calm while others lose balance, you become the anchor in the storm. People start trusting your energy, even when they disagree with your words. They may not like what you say, but they'll respect how you say it. And in the long run, that's what creates lasting influence. Every difficult conversation begins with a choice. React or respond. Reaction is fast. It's emotional. It's impulsive. Response is deliberate. It's thoughtful. It's controlled. The space between those two is your power. That pause, that single breath before you speak, that's where communication transforms. You can feel your anger, but you don't have to become it. You can acknowledge frustration, but you don't have to express it as aggression. When you speak from control, your tone softens, but your message stays strong. You lead the emotion instead of letting it lead you. That's what separates a communicator from a reactor. Emotional control doesn't mean being robotic. It means being responsible. It's the ability to feel everything but choose what to express. That discipline builds respect, because people don't trust perfection. They trust composure. When you stay composed under pressure, you silently say, "I can handle this." And that steadiness changes the entire atmosphere of a conversation. Even heated discussions start to cool down when one person stays centered. Your calm becomes contagious. That's how leadership communicates, not through dominance, but through energy management. In any difficult discussion, timing matters. If emotions are too raw, sometimes silence is wiser than speech. You can't plant clarity in chaos. You need stillness first. It's okay to say, "Let's take a break and talk when we're calmer." That's not avoidance. That's awareness. Because words spoken in heat burn bridges that take years to rebuild. And no matter how right you are, if your delivery wounds someone, your truth gets lost. It's not enough to be correct. You have to be kind while being correct. That's emotional intelligence in action. In conflict, listen more than you talk. People don't argue because they love chaos. They argue because they feel unseen, unheard, misunderstood. When you truly listen, you remove half the tension before even speaking. Listening is the calmest way to regain control. And when you finally respond, use empathy as your foundation. Empathy doesn't mean you agree. It means you understand. You can say, "I see where you're coming from," before you explain your side. That simple acknowledgement opens hearts faster than any argument. Use tone as your tool. The wrong tone can turn truth into insult. The right tone can turn disagreement into dialogue. Tone carries emotion, and emotion carries meaning beyond your words. Lower your voice when things get tense. Slow your speech. Let calmness be felt through your rhythm. Because when you lower your tone, people lower their defenses. And once defenses drop, communication begins again. In workplaces, difficult conversations happen daily about performance, accountability, expectations, or change. The most respected leaders are not the ones who shout. They're the ones who handle pressure without losing grace. They say what needs to be said, but they say it with balance. They give feedback without humiliation. They address issues without destroying confidence. Their goal is not to win, it's to resolve. That's what emotional control gives you. The ability to aim for resolution, not revenge. Sometimes you'll have to face conversations where the other person isn't calm. They might raise their voice. They might project frustration. They might even try to provoke you. In those moments, your silence will be your strength. Don't mirror chaos. Lead with peace. If you match their tone, you lose control. But if you stay steady, you shift the balance. Soon, they'll start matching your tone. Because emotional control influences energy, silently but powerfully. When you speak during conflict, focus on clarity, not defense. Don't justify every point. Don't chase being right. Chase being understood. You can say, "Here's how I see it," instead of "you're wrong." That shift in phrasing keeps the door open. It allows communication to continue, even when agreement doesn't come. Remember, your goal isn't to win. It's to build understanding, because understanding lasts longer than arguments. After every difficult conversation, reflect. Ask yourself, did I stay calm? Did I listen fully? Did I speak with clarity and respect? Reflection turns experience into growth. Even if the conversation didn't end perfectly, you'll learn how to handle the next one better. That's how emotional control develops. Not in theory, but through practice. Every hard talk refines your discipline. Every pause you choose strengthens your peace. And over time, your composure becomes unshakable. The secret to emotional control is self-awareness. You can't manage what you don't recognize. Learn your triggers. Notice what types of comments or tones unsettle you. When you know your triggers, you stop being ruled by them. You start mastering your reactions before they master you. That's how emotional stability is built, one conversation at a time. The truth is, difficult conversations are not enemies. They're opportunities. They reveal your growth. They show how far you've come. They train you to communicate with more balance, more empathy, more strength. When you avoid them, you delay your maturity. When you face them with control, you accelerate it. Because growth never comes from comfort. It comes from courage. And there is no courage without composure. So when the next tough conversation arrives, don't run and don't rush. Pause, breathe, observe. Center yourself before you speak. Let calmness lead you. Let understanding guide you. Then speak, gently, truthfully, firmly. You'll notice something powerful. When you stay calm, you start leading the entire emotional climate of the conversation. And that's when real communication begins. Emotional control doesn't make you cold. It makes you wise. It gives you strength without cruelty, clarity without arrogance, and calmness without weakness. It allows you to face storms without losing your shape. Because control isn't the absence of feeling. It's the presence of direction. And when you can direct emotion, you can direct connection. That's the highest form of communication. When you can speak truth with peace and correct without conflict. That's how real leaders, mentors, and communicators move the world. Not through power, but through composure. Chapter 6. The role of empathy in communication. Empathy is not a skill. It's a sensitivity. It's the ability to feel beyond words, to sense what someone means, even when they can't say it. Communication without empathy is just noise. It's information without connection. It's sound without soul. You can speak perfectly. You can use the right tone. You can follow every technique. But if you don't feel what the other person feels, your words won't reach their heart. Empathy is what makes communication human. It turns listening into understanding. It turns words into comfort. It turns connection into trust. That's the quiet power behind every great communicator. Empathy begins with presence. You can't feel others if you're not truly with them. When someone talks, don't just hear their sentences. Hear their silence. The pause before they speak. The sigh between words. The emotion hiding in their eyes. That's where empathy lives. It's not something you force. It's something you allow. Empathy means letting go of judgment. You don't have to agree to understand. You don't have to fix to care. You just have to be willing to see through another person's lens. That willingness changes everything. Because when people feel understood, they stop defending and start revealing. They trust you. They open up. They let you in. And that's when communication becomes transformation. In the workplace, empathy is leadership. It's not softness, it's strength guided by awareness. When you lead with empathy, you create an environment where people feel safe to speak, safe to share, safe to be human. And that safety becomes the foundation of productivity. Empathy doesn't mean avoiding accountability. It means delivering it with understanding. You don't ignore mistakes. You address them in a way that respects human emotion. You say, I see the effort you made, let's fix what didn't work. Instead of, you failed again. The difference is everything. One builds shame, the other builds strength. That's the art of emotional leadership. Empathy also transforms conflict. When someone gets angry, they're usually not fighting you. They're fighting their own frustration, their fear of being misunderstood, their need to feel seen. Empathy helps you hear the emotion behind the anger. Instead of reacting to the noise, you respond to the need. That's how calm people diffuse chaos. Not by arguing louder, but by listening deeper. You can't fight emotion with logic. You calm emotion with empathy first, then guide with logic after. Once the heart feels safe, the mind opens up. That's how understanding grows. Empathy is emotional translation. It's reading what's invisible. A colleague says, I'm fine, but their tone trembles. A friend smiles, but their eyes look distant. A team member agrees too quickly, not from alignment but from fear. Empathy helps you catch those signals. It helps you see beneath the surface. Because not everyone knows how to express their feelings. But everyone wants to be understood. When you notice what's unspoken, you make people feel seen without them having to explain. And that's one of the deepest forms of respect. Empathy doesn't make you weaker. It makes you wiser. Because when you understand emotion, you can navigate any situation with precision. You know when to push and when to pause, when to speak and when to listen, when to comfort and when to challenge. Empathy gives you range. It turns your communication into art. Without it, your words may be accurate, but empty. With it, even simple sentences carry weight. Empathy is the difference between hearing and healing. At its core, empathy is about curiosity. Curiosity about others' inner worlds. Curiosity about what drives them, what scares them, what motivates them. When you're curious, you stop judging. You start exploring. You start asking, not to prove, but to understand. That curiosity keeps your communication alive, because empathy and curiosity walk together. The moment you stop being curious about others, you stop connecting with them. And the moment you stop connecting, your words start losing power. Empathy also builds influence quietly. People listen to those who make them feel heard. You don't need authority to have influence. You need understanding. When people feel that you get them, they naturally trust your perspective. They let you guide them. They let you correct them. That's why empathy is a leader's greatest tool. It's not manipulation. It's connection built on care. And care builds loyalty faster than control ever could. In personal relationships, empathy is the glue that keeps hearts aligned. When you listen without defending, when you understand before answering, when you make space for someone's emotion without labeling it, you create love that lasts. Because empathy is not about agreeing on everything. It's about standing beside someone even when you don't fully understand. It's about saying, I may not feel what you feel, but I care that you feel it. That sentence alone can heal more than 100 arguments. Empathy also requires boundaries. You can feel deeply without absorbing everything. You can care without carrying. Because too much empathy without balance leads to burnout. The goal is not to take on others' pain. It's to understand it while staying centered. Healthy empathy listens with heart, responds with care, but protects its peace. That's sustainable connection. One that doesn't drain, but nourishes. Empathy isn't about words. It's about presence. It's how you look at someone when they're struggling. It's the calm tone that says, you're safe here. It's the patience in your silence that says, I'm listening. It's the way you hold eye contact long enough for the other person to feel seen, not analyzed, not judged, just seen. Those moments build trust stronger than any promise. At work, empathy is often what keeps teams together. It helps you understand not just performance, but people. Everyone's fighting a battle you can't see. Stress, insecurity, pressure, exhaustion. Empathy reminds you that behind every title, there's a human being trying their best. When you treat people that way, you create loyalty that can't be bought. A kind leader gets more results than a cold one. Because empathy doesn't weaken accountability, it strengthens it through connection. People don't work well out of fear. They work well when they feel valued. Empathy also requires patience with yourself, because you can't give what you don't have. If you want to understand others, first learn to understand your own emotions. Notice when you're reactive. Notice when you shut down. Notice when you're distant. That awareness creates compassion. You stop expecting perfection from yourself and from others. You start seeing communication as collaboration, not competition. Empathy begins within. The more gently you treat yourself, the more gently you'll treat others. At its highest level, empathy is wisdom. It sees not just what people do, but why they do it. It looks beyond mistakes and sees pain. It looks beyond anger and sees fear. It looks beyond resistance and sees insecurity. And when you can see that, you stop reacting to behavior and start responding to humanity. That's how empathy transforms communication. It turns confrontation into connection. It turns misunderstanding into growth. It turns distance into dialogue. So practice empathy, not as a trick, but as a way of being. Slow down before judging. Ask before assuming. Feel before replying. Because sometimes, what people need is not advice, but understanding. Sometimes, what they remember is not what you said, but how safe they felt around you. And that safety, that human connection, is the soul of communication. Because when words fail, empathy still speaks, and it always speaks the truth. Chapter 7. The Psychology of Trust in Communication. Trust is the foundation of every relationship, personal, professional, emotional, or spiritual. Without trust, no communication works. Words lose meaning. Promises lose power. Presence loses peace. You can't influence without trust. You can't lead without trust. You can't love without trust. Trust is invisible, but everyone can feel it. It's not built overnight. It's built moment by moment, word by word, action by action. That's why it's called the psychology of trust, because it lives in perception, not declaration. You can't demand it. You have to earn it. In communication, trust is not what you say. It's what people believe when you say it. You can tell the truth, but if your tone feels unsure, they'll doubt it. You can promise loyalty, but if your actions feel inconsistent, they'll question it. Because trust is emotional, not logical. It's not decided by facts. It's felt through experience. And once it's broken, logic can't fix it. Only consistency can. Trust begins with honesty. Not just honesty of words, but honesty of intent. When your motives are clean, your communication feels real. People can sense authenticity. They can also sense when something's off, when your words sound right, but your energy doesn't. That dissonance breaks trust faster than any lie, because humans don't listen with just their ears. They listen with their instincts, and instinct can't be fooled for long. That's why the psychology of trust starts with alignment. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions moving together. When you mean what you say, and say what you mean, trust grows naturally. But trust is fragile. It doesn't need betrayal to break. It breaks with inconsistency. Say one thing and do another. Trust weakens. Speak kindly but act cold. Trust fades. Make promises you don't honor. Trust disappears. Because people don't remember your words. They remember your patterns. Trust isn't built through big gestures. It's built through small consistencies. Showing up when you say you will. Keeping confidence when someone shares. Listening without turning away. Those moments become proof of your reliability. In the workplace, trust is the emotional currency of every team. Without it, people play safe. They hide ideas. They avoid risk. But when trust is present, creativity blooms, collaboration flows, accountability feels natural, because trust removes fear. It tells people, you can be honest here. You can fail and still be respected. You can speak and still be valued. That's what makes communication powerful, not control, but safety. The best leaders don't force trust. They create environments where trust grows. They model consistency. They communicate transparently. They correct gently. And they stay the same person in every room. That's how trust becomes culture. Trust is not about never making mistakes. It's about admitting them. People trust vulnerability more than perfection. When you say, I was wrong, you build credibility, not weakness. Because honesty creates connection. The psychology behind it is simple. Vulnerability humanizes you. And people trust humans more than performances. You can't connect through a mask. You connect through truth. Even when it's uncomfortable. The psychology of trust is also tied to predictability. Humans crave stability. They trust what they can anticipate. That's why reliability is more powerful than charm. Charm attracts people. Consistency keeps them. When people know what to expect from you, they relax around you. Their guard drops. Their heart opens. That's how communication becomes deeper. Because trust is the bridge between emotion and understanding. It allows people to listen without fear, to speak without calculation, to connect without tension. Trust is built through truth, but it grows through empathy. When you show people that you care about how they feel, not just what they do, they trust your intention. Empathy tells them, I'm not just here to correct you. I'm here to understand you. That message stays in their heart longer than any speech. Trust needs both head and heart. Logic makes it clear. Emotion makes it real. You can't build it with one and ignore the other. In difficult conversations, trust is tested. That's where most communication fails, not because of disagreement, but because of disconnection. When emotions rise, people stop hearing logic. They only hear tone. That's why calmness builds trust, even when words clash. It shows maturity. It shows self-control. It shows respect for the relationship above the argument. Trust doesn't require agreement. It requires respect. When people know you'll stay fair, even when you're firm, they'll keep listening. That's the psychology of safety, and makes people stay in dialogue, not defense. Trust also comes from transparency. Hiding truths, even small ones, creates distance. People can feel when you're holding back. But when you're open, even about uncertainty, you strengthen the bond. You can say, I don't have the full answer right now, but I'll find out. That builds more trust than pretending you know everything, because truth connects. Pretense separates. The more real you are, the safer others feel to be real with you. In personal relationships, Trust is built in silence. It's not in grand declarations of loyalty. It's in the quiet moments of reliability. It's when someone confides in you and you protect their words. It's when you're consistent even when no one's watching. It's when your love stays steady even in disagreement. Trust is emotional memory. It's the brain saying, "You were there for me before. I believe you'll be there again." That belief takes time to build, but only one careless act to destroy. That's why emotional awareness is essential in communication. You must always ask yourself, am I speaking from ego or empathy? Because ego divides. Empathy builds. The psychology of trust also lives in follow-through. Promises don't create trust. Keeping them does. When your actions echo your words, your credibility multiplies. When they don't, your words lose value. So never make a promise in excitement that your discipline can't keep. Say less, deliver more. That's how trust becomes unshakable. People trust those who listen, because listening says, "I value your voice." It's not about agreeing, it's about acknowledging. Even when you can't give someone what they want, you can still make them feel respected. That's the heart of psychological safety. And when people feel safe, they communicate openly. They tell you the truth. They let you see their vulnerability. That's when real progress happens. Trust grows slowly but breaks fast. So protect it. Guard it through your tone, through your timing, through your transparency. When people trust you, your words travel faster. Your influence deepens. Your presence calms. Because they're not just listening to your message. They're resting in your integrity. That's what every great communicator carries. A sense of safety in their energy. You feel it the moment they walk into a room. Their calm says, "You can relax, I'm real." That's how trust sounds without saying a word. At its core, the psychology of trust is simple. Consistency builds it, empathy deepens it, and honesty protects it. When these three align, your communication becomes transformative. You no longer need to convince people. They believe you. Because trust doesn't come from what you say next. It comes from everything you've already done. So build trust patiently. Speak truth even when it's hard. Listen more than you argue. Deliver more than you promise. Because once people trust you, they'll follow your words beyond reason. They'll believe your silence as much as your sentences. And that is the highest form of communication. When your presence speaks louder than your voice. Chapter 8. The Power of Nonverbal Communication. You are always communicating, even when you're silent. Your posture, your eyes, your face, your tone, they all speak long before your words ever do. Nonverbal communication is the language of presence. It's what people feel before they listen. It's the first impression you create without trying. Before you say a single word, your body already tells your story, your confidence, your calm, your energy, your truth. It's all visible. You can't hide energy. You can only align it. That's why understanding nonverbal communication isn't optional. It's essential. Because most of what people believe about you doesn't come from what you say. It comes from how you show up. Research says that more than half of communication is nonverbal. That means your gestures, tone, and expressions carry more meaning than your sentences. Think about it. When someone says, "I'm fine," you know instantly if they mean it or not. You read the truth from their eyes, from the tension in their voice, from the weight of their pause. That's the silent language of emotion. And it's this language that great communicators master. Nonverbal communication begins with awareness. Before you manage your words, you must manage your energy, because your body reflects your inner state. Your movements follow your mind. If you're anxious, your hands fidget. If you're uncertain, your voice trembles. If you're confident, your shoulders open and your breathing slows. You don't need to act confident. You need to feel calm. Presence isn't performance, it's peace. When your inner world is centered, your outer expression naturally aligns. That's what people feel. Your eyes are your first language. They speak before your mouth does. Eye contact builds connection faster than words ever could. It tells the other person, I'm here. I see you. But there's a difference between looking and connecting. Looking is surface. Connection is awareness. When your eyes carry calmness, they communicate safety. When they carry focus, they communicate power. When they carry kindness, they communicate humanity. That's why emotionally intelligent communicators use their gaze intentionally, not to dominate, but to connect. Your body posture speaks your mindset. When you stand tall with relaxed shoulders, you say, I'm confident and open. When you hunch forward, you say, I'm uncertain or defensive. Your body leaks emotion before your voice does. That's why posture matters more than you think. Every gesture should come from ease, not effort. Forced movements look fake. Natural ones look powerful, because authenticity is felt, not faked. Even your breathing affects communication. Fast breathing signals stress. Steady breathing signals control. People subconsciously mirror the rhythm of your breath. If you're calm, they calm down. If you're nervous, they tighten up. That's the psychology of energy exchange. So before speaking, breathe slowly. Center yourself. Let your energy settle. Your tone will follow your breath, and your words will follow your tone. Tone, that's your emotional fingerprint. You can say the same sentence in 10 different tones and create 10 different meanings. Tone decides how your message lands. It's not just about what you say, it's about what you sound like when you say it. A harsh tone closes hearts. A soft tone opens them. People may forget your words, but they'll always remember how your tone made them feel. That's why emotionally grounded communicators use tone like music, balanced, intentional, full of rhythm. They know when to lower it to show care, when to lift it to show passion, and when to pause to show respect. Nonverbal communication also includes stillness. Silence is not absence. It's presence without pressure. When you hold silence comfortably, you project calm. It tells the other person, I'm not rushing you, I'm with you. Most people can't handle silence. They fill it with noise because they fear discomfort. But silence builds depth. It gives space for emotion to breathe. It shows control without saying a thing. So when you speak, don't fear silence. Use it as punctuation. Your gestures also tell stories. The way you move your hands, the way you tilt your head, the way you lean in or pull back, it all communicates emotion. Open gestures signal openness. Closed gestures signal defense. When your palms face upward, you signal honesty and receptiveness. When your arms cross over your chest, you signal caution or disconnection. Body language is instinctive. You can't trick it for long. That's why instead of learning tricks, learn alignment. When your heart, words and gestures match, your presence becomes magnetic. Facial expressions are your emotional signature. Your face speaks more than any script. A smile can disarm anger. A frown can discourage openness. A nod can inspire confidence. But forced expressions always betray themselves. Real emotion can't be mimicked. It has to be felt. So before smiling, mean it. Before nodding, understand. Before expressing, feel. That authenticity makes your nonverbal cues believable. At work, nonverbal cues shape perception long before results do. The way you walk into a room, the way you sit during a meeting, the way you shake hands, it all communicates your level of confidence, respect, and readiness. You might say all the right things, but if your body language contradicts you, people will believe your body, not your words. Because emotion is more trustworthy than vocabulary. That's why every powerful communicator trains presence first, then language. They know that posture and tone are not decoration. They're translation. They translate emotion into energy that people can feel. Nonverbal communication also requires sensitivity. Just like you're sending signals, you're also constantly receiving them. Learn to observe. Watch how people sit, how they breathe, how they react. If someone leans in, they're engaged. If they step back, they're defensive. If they avoid eye contact, they may feel unsafe. This awareness helps you adjust your tone and approach in real time. That's emotional adaptability, the ability to sense and shift energy in the moment. It's not manipulation, it's connection. In relationships, nonverbal communication becomes the heartbeat. It's the small things, the way you look at someone when they're talking, the calm touch on the shoulder that says, "I'm here," the unspoken understanding in your smile. Words may explain love, but body language expresses it. When words fail, touch, tone, and eyes still speak. That's why silence between two connected people can feel so full, because presence replaces language. Nonverbal communication is not just outward, it's inward too. How you hold yourself shapes how you feel. If you sit straight, you feel stronger. If you open your body, you feel braver. If you smile, you actually lift your mood. Your physiology influences your psychology. That means you can change your emotions by changing your body language. This is how confident people prepare. They stand tall, breathe deep, hold calm posture, and confidence follows naturally. Because the body teaches the mind how to feel. The more aware you become of nonverbal signals, the more empathetic your communication becomes. You start hearing the stories behind people's silence. You start seeing the pain behind their smiles. You start recognizing when someone needs understanding instead of advice. And that awareness, that quiet emotional radar, turns you from a good communicator into a wise one. Nonverbal mastery is not about learning techniques. It's about cultivating alignment. When your heart and body agree with your words, people don't just hear you, they trust you. You can say less and mean more. You can do less and impact more. Because your energy becomes your message. The way you enter a room, the way you sit in silence, the way you listen with your whole being. That's what people remember. That's how your presence speaks without sound. So remember, you're always communicating. Your body is your first language. Your energy is your voice before your words. Make them clear. Make them calm. Make them kind. Because in the end, people won't remember every sentence you spoke, but they'll always remember how it felt to be in your presence. And that feeling, that silent communication, is the most powerful message you'll ever send. Chapter 9. The Art of Persuasion and Influence. Influence is not control. Persuasion is not manipulation. They are the art of guiding minds and hearts, not by force, but by understanding. True persuasion doesn't demand. It invites. It doesn't pressure. It inspires. And influence, real influence, is never about dominance. It's about trust. Because when people trust your energy, they open their minds to your idea. That's where all-powerful communication begins. In trust, not tactics. Persuasion starts with empathy. You can't change someone's perspective until you first understand it. If you try to convince without connection, you'll meet resistance. But when you connect emotionally, you create space for logic. People don't listen to what you say until they feel that you've listened to them. That's the psychology of persuasion. Understand before influencing. Because humans don't move by arguments. They move by emotion. You win hearts first, then minds follow. Every act of persuasion is a balance between logic and feeling. Logic explains. Emotion motivates. You can show data, but people decide through emotion first, then justify it with logic later. That's why great communicators don't just inform, they inspire. They don't just talk about what is, they paint what could be. They create vision. They tell stories that stir imagination. They make people feel possibility. That's persuasion at its highest form. When you don't push, you pull. Influence doesn't come from titles. It comes from credibility. You can't persuade people who don't respect you. Credibility is earned by consistency, not charisma. You don't need to be the loudest voice in the room. You just need to be the most reliable one. When your actions match your words again and again, you become persuasive without even trying. Because consistency builds trust, and trust builds influence. That's how quiet people sometimes lead nations. Not by shouting, but by standing firm. To persuade someone, you must first believe in what you're saying. People can sense conviction. They can also sense when it's missing. Even if your words are perfect, if your tone lacks belief, your message falls flat. Conviction is contagious. It lights up your tone, straightens your posture, and anchors your words. You don't need to sound dramatic. You just need to sound sure. Because confidence makes truth louder. But persuasion also requires humility. You're not always right. You're just one perspective in a world full of them. Great communicators don't force belief. They present truth gently and allow others the space to arrive on their own. That's influence without resistance. It's not do as I say. It's here's why this matters. That shift in tone changes everything. People follow those who respect their intelligence. They resist those who attack it. So never aim to overpower someone. Aim to awaken them. The structure of persuasion is simple. First, connect emotionally. Second, create clarity. Third, communicate vision. Fourth, call to action, softly, not forcefully. This flow mirrors how the human brain makes decisions. We feel first. We understand second. We act last. If you skip emotion, you lose connection. If you skip clarity, you lose understanding. If you skip respect, you lose everything. Tone and timing matter more than words. The right message at the wrong time feels like noise, but the right message at the right time feels like guidance. So before persuading, read the moment. Is the person ready to hear? Are they open or defensive? You can't plant new thoughts in a closed mind. Wait for softness. Wait for trust. Then speak calmly, clearly, confidently. Your timing is your power. The heart of persuasion lies in storytelling. Stories bypass resistance. They transport the listener into a safe space where they can explore new ideas without feeling attacked. You can teach someone a lesson directly, or you can show them through a story, and they'll understand it better. Because humans think in pictures, not paragraphs. A good story shows. It doesn't lecture. That's how all great leaders, teachers, and communicators have shaped minds throughout history. They spoke in stories, because stories create emotion, and emotion creates change. In influence, authenticity beats authority. You don't need to be perfect to inspire people. You just need to be honest. When you share your experiences, your failures, your lessons, your scars, you build emotional bridges. People follow those who are real, not those who pretend to know everything. Authenticity makes persuasion personal. It says, I've been where you are. And that simple statement breaks the wall between speaker and listener. That's where influence begins, in shared humanity. You can't influence if you don't listen. Listening is not just part of communication. It is communication. When people feel heard, they lower their defenses. You can then speak into that space safely. But if you interrupt, dismiss, or rush, you lose the opportunity before it begins. That's why the best persuaders are patient. They listen first, then respond slowly, because understanding always comes before influence. Persuasion is emotional negotiation. You're not fighting against the other person's beliefs. You're guiding their perspective gently, showing them what they might not see. The more you understand their fears, the easier it becomes to ease them. Because fear blocks listening, reassurance opens it. When people feel safe, they start thinking clearly. That's the secret of soft influence. You lower resistance through compassion, not through force. Influence grows strongest through example. People believe what they see, more than what they hear. You can't preach confidence while acting insecure. You can't teach peace while radiating stress. You can't ask for discipline while showing chaos. Your energy persuades faster than your arguments. If you live your message, you don't need to sell it. You simply become it. That's leadership. Silent, consistent, magnetic. Influence is not measured by followers. It's measured by impact. You can speak to a crowd and change nothing, or speak to one person and change everything. The size of your audience doesn't define your influence. The depth of your sincerity does. One honest sentence can shift someone's life. That's the true scale of persuasion, quiet but lasting. In relationships, persuasion is not control, it's compassion. It's helping someone see another side, without making them feel small. It's guiding, not commanding. It's saying, I care enough to help you see this, not you're wrong and I'm right. When love and respect drive your words, even correction feels like care. That's the power of influence, rooted in intention. The psychology behind persuasion is simple. People follow those who make them feel capable, not those who make them feel criticized. So your job as a communicator is to awaken belief in others, to help them see their own potential, to help them realize their power. When your message uplifts instead of diminishes, you build loyalty without asking for it. That's how influence turns into inspiration. True persuasion leaves people feeling stronger, not smaller. It doesn't feed your ego. It fuels their confidence. And when you can do that, you don't just communicate, you transform. Because real influence doesn't end when the conversation ends. It echoes. It stays in people's hearts as a new way of seeing themselves. So, speak to inspire, persuade to empower, influence with integrity. Because in the end, persuasion isn't about winning arguments. It's about building bridges. It's not about proving who's right. It's about creating what's right, together. That's the art of true influence. To move others without pushing, to lead without controlling, to speak softly and still change everything. Chapter 10. Mastering Emotional Control in Communication. Emotion drives everything you say. It shapes your tone. It colors your words. It decides whether your message heals or hurts. You can have the best vocabulary, the right timing, the perfect arguments. But if you lose control of your emotion, you lose your message. Because emotion is energy, and communication is how that energy travels. If your emotion is chaotic, your words will be too. Mastering communication, therefore, is mastering emotion first. Emotional control doesn't mean suppressing feelings. It means directing them. It's not about becoming cold. It's about staying conscious. Because emotion isn't your enemy. Impulsiveness is. When you react without awareness, you give your power away. But when you pause before responding, you take your power back. That pause is your wisdom. That breath is your weapon. You don't fight emotion. You learn to ride it with balance. In every conversation, there are two levels happening at once. The words being spoken, and the emotions beneath them. Most people respond to the words. Master communicators respond to the emotions. They don't just hear what's said. They hear what's meant. They feel what's behind the silence. That sensitivity is power. When you sense emotion early, you can guide the conversation before it collapses into conflict. That's the art of emotional control, to stay grounded when energy gets heavy. The more you understand your own emotions, the better you understand others. If you don't know how anger feels in you, you won't recognize it in them. If you deny your fear, you'll misunderstand theirs. That's why emotional intelligence begins with self-awareness. You must know your triggers. The specific words, tones, or situations that unsettle you. Because once you know them, they stop owning you. Awareness turns reaction into choice. And choice is freedom. You don't have to lose control. You choose whether to respond with calm or chaos. That choice defines your character. In communication, emotion spreads fast. Anger transfers instantly. So does calmness. If you're anxious, you raise the tension in the room. If you're centered, you bring peace to others without saying a word. That's emotional leadership. The ability to manage the collective mood through your own stability. People don't follow the loudest person. They follow the most emotionally balanced one, because balance feels safe. And safety is the root of influence. When emotions rise, logic falls. That's why it's impossible to solve anything while either side is heated. You can't reason with emotion. You can only calm it. Then reason can return. So when a conversation gets tense, pause. Don't rush to fix it. Don't rush to win it. Let silence cool the fire. Let patience reopen the door. A few seconds of calm can save hours of conflict. That's not weakness. That's strategy. Control also means choosing your tone. Your tone carries more emotion than your words ever could. You can say "I understand" in a way that feels kind, or in a way that feels dismissive. You can say "I'm listening" and still sound like you don't care. Tone is emotional translation. It tells people whether they can trust you. So when you speak, let your tone reflect calm confidence, steady, warm, and deliberate. When your tone stays grounded, people listen longer. They feel safe. They open up. That's the hidden magic of emotional control. To master emotion, you must master attention. Where your attention goes, your emotion flows. If you focus on the insult, you'll feel anger. If you focus on the misunderstanding, you'll feel empathy. Attention is steering. It decides which emotion grows stronger. So the next time someone triggers you, shift your focus. Don't look at what offends you. Look at what they're struggling with. That perspective keeps your compassion alive, because empathy disarms aggression faster than defense ever will. Emotion also lives in your body. You feel it before you think it. Your jaw tightens. Your heartbeat speeds. Your chest gets heavy. That's emotion signaling you something matters right now. When you ignore these signals, emotion explodes. When you notice them early, you can regulate before reaction. Take a breath. Relax your shoulders. Feel your heartbeat slowing. That simple awareness grounds you instantly. And once you're calm, your communication regains its clarity. Emotional control isn't silence. It's strength with softness. It means saying what needs to be said, without adding unnecessary pain. You can deliver truth with kindness. You can hold boundaries with grace. You don't need to raise your voice to be firm. You just need to speak from peace. Because peace carries authority. When your words come from calm, people trust them more. They stop defending and start understanding. That's how emotion and communication align. In the workplace, emotional control separates professionals from amateurs. Anyone can lead when things go right. True leaders lead when things go wrong. When chaos hits, they don't panic. They pause. They stabilize the room. They lower the emotional temperature. They remind everyone, "We're okay, we'll solve this." That tone builds confidence faster than any motivational speech, because stability is influence. Emotional control also protects relationships. When you react impulsively, you say things you don't mean. And even if you apologize later, the words linger. But when you control yourself, you protect the bond. You choose understanding over ego. Sometimes walking away from an argument is the smartest communication move you can make. Silence is not surrender, it's strategy. You can't fix a storm while standing in it. You step out, wait for the sky to clear, then speak with reason. That's wisdom disguised as restraint. Mastery of emotional control requires patience. You won't always get it right. Some days you'll still lose balance. Some moments you'll still react. But awareness grows with practice. Every time you catch yourself before saying something you'll regret, you're winning. Every time you breathe instead of bursting, you're evolving. Growth in communication is not about perfection. It's about progress. And every calm response is a step toward mastery. Emotion also fuels passion. Don't confuse control with dullness. You don't need to kill emotion. You need to channel it. Let your passion give your words life. Let your care make your tone warm. Let your empathy make your silence meaningful. Emotion makes communication alive. Control makes it wise. When both coexist, you become unforgettable. The secret to mastering emotional control is knowing this. You don't have to respond to everything that triggers you. Not every reaction deserves expression. Not every comment needs correction. Not every argument needs participation. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer. Sometimes calmness is the greatest victory. Emotional control is not about suppressing fire. It's about learning when to use it. Fire can destroy, but it can also light the path. The choice is yours. So the next time you feel emotion rise, don't fight it. Don't fear it. Feel it. Breathe through it. Then decide what to do with it. That pause, that moment between feeling and action, is where maturity is born. It's where wisdom begins. It's where true communicators are made. Emotion gives color to your voice. Control gives direction to your message. Together they create balance, a calm strength that people trust, a quiet power that people respect. That's the mark of emotional mastery. You no longer need to dominate the room. You simply hold it with your presence. Because people follow those who control themselves when others can't. That's how emotional control turns communication into influence. In the end, remember, you can't control what others say. You can only control how you respond. And that response decides everything. The tone of your relationships, the depth of your trust, and the peace of your own mind. Master that, and you master every conversation. Because when emotion obeys awareness, your words carry wisdom. And when your voice stays calm in chaos, your presence becomes power. That's what it means to master emotional control in communication. To stay centered, even when the world isn't. Chapter 11, The Emotional Intelligence of Leadership. Chapter 11, Building Confidence Through Communication. Confidence isn't the sound of your voice. It's the sound of your mind when it's calm. It's not about being loud. It's about being sure. Real confidence doesn't come from how others see you. It comes from how deeply you believe in what you're saying. It's not arrogance. It's alignment. When your words match your truth, you don't have to force confidence. It flows naturally. That's why the most powerful communicators aren't always the loudest. They're the most centered. Their power isn't in volume. It's in conviction. Confidence in communication begins with clarity. If you're not sure what you mean, you'll never sound sure when you say it. Unclear thoughts create uncertain speech. Before you speak, take a moment to understand your message. What's your point? What's your purpose? What's the emotion you want to leave behind? Confidence doesn't come from rehearsing sentences. It comes from understanding your intention. Once your purpose is clear, your tone becomes natural, your delivery becomes smooth, and your energy becomes calm. Because your mind and your message are finally in sync. Most people confuse confidence with perfection. They think they'll be confident when they stop making mistakes. But confidence isn't built from flawless communication. It's built from resilience. Confidence says, I might stumble, but I'll stand again. It's not about speaking without fear. It's about speaking through fear. You don't wait for fear to vanish. You learn to move with it. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the mastery of it. And every time you face that fear, your confidence grows stronger. Confidence also lives in your preparation. When you prepare deeply, you speak freely. Because your mind isn't searching, it's ready. Preparation doesn't make you rigid. It makes you relaxed. You can focus on people instead of words. You can listen instead of panicking. And that presence creates natural confidence. You don't need to memorize lines. You just need to internalize meaning. When you own your message, You don't have to perform it. You simply share it. That's the difference between fear and flow. Your body carries your confidence long before your voice does. Stand tall, breathe deeply, look people in the eye. Your posture tells the world how you feel about yourself. When your shoulders are open, you signal strength. When your body is relaxed, you signal calm. When your face carries peace, you signal control. Confidence isn't loud energy. It's steady energy. It's the quiet assurance that says, I belong here. The greatest communicators are not born confident. They build confidence through small moments of courage. They spoke even when their voice trembled. They stood tall even when their knees shook. They faced audiences, silence, and criticism, and learned that none of those could destroy them. That's how confidence grows. One uncomfortable moment at a time. You don't find confidence in books or compliments. You build it through experience. You earn it by showing up, again and again. Confidence isn't discovered, it's developed. In every conversation, there's a moment when doubt whispers, what if I fail? What if they don't like what I say? What if I sound stupid? That voice never disappears. You just stop obeying it. Confidence doesn't silence doubt. It speaks louder than it. It says, I'll still do it anyway. Because confidence isn't certainty about the outcome. It's faith in your ability to handle it. That's the mindset that changes everything. Confidence in communication is emotional discipline. When someone challenges you, you don't react, you respond. When you make a mistake, you don't collapse, you continue. When silence fills the room, you don't panic, you pause. That composure is what people remember. They don't recall every word. They recall the way you stayed calm. That's confidence in its purest form. Stillness under pressure. Confidence also comes from honesty. Pretending to be confident creates pressure. Being honest about what you know and don't know creates relief. You can say, I don't have that answer yet. That's strength, not weakness. Because confidence isn't pretending to know everything. It's being secure enough to admit what you don't. People trust that kind of honesty more than forced authority. And trust, once earned, multiplies your confidence naturally. Confidence is built by self-respect. When you keep promises to yourself, to learn, to grow, to stay calm, you begin to trust yourself. And self-trust is the root of outer confidence. If you can't rely on your own word, your mind won't let your voice sound steady. Every time you follow through on what you said you'd do, your inner voice says, I can count on me. That's what makes you stand taller. Confidence is not ego. It's integrity in motion. To build confidence through communication, you must embrace vulnerability. You can't connect deeply if you're hiding behind a mask. Let people see the real you, your sincerity, your imperfections, your humanity. Because people don't trust perfect speakers. They trust honest ones. Perfection creates distance. Authenticity builds closeness. When you show up as yourself, you stop fearing judgment. Because you're no longer performing. You're being. That's where real confidence begins. Every confident communicator has learned one truth. You don't control how others perceive you, but you do control how you express yourself. You can't control reactions. You can only control delivery. Focus on that, and your confidence stays unshaken. When you stop chasing approval, your communication becomes fearless. Approval is external. Confidence is internal. When your self-worth no longer depends on applause, your voice becomes free. That freedom sounds like confidence. In the workplace, confidence builds credibility faster than credentials. You can have the same idea as someone else, but if they present it with confidence, it gets heard first. That's the reality of perception. Confidence makes your voice noticeable. It makes your message believable. And that's not arrogance. That's communication backed by belief. When your belief in your message is unshakable, your influence grows naturally, because people follow conviction, not confusion. Confidence also comes from emotional preparation. Before you speak, center yourself. Breathe slowly. Remind yourself why this matters. Focus on serving, not impressing. When your purpose becomes bigger than your fear, you stop worrying about performance. Because the heart of confidence is service. When you want to give, you stop being afraid to fail. You stop asking, "What will they think of me?" and start asking, "How can I help them?" That shift turns nervousness into power. Confidence is also built by self-compassion. You'll make mistakes. You'll forget words. You'll stumble. But confidence isn't perfection under pressure. It's grace under imperfection. You learn. You adjust. You grow. And every stumble becomes another layer of strength. When you stop punishing yourself for small errors, you start communicating with flow. Because confidence lives where self-criticism ends. The psychology of confidence is simple. Your mind believes what you repeatedly tell it. If you say, "I can't do this," your body believes it. If you say, "I can handle this," your body believes that too. Your words shape your self-image. Your self-image shapes your communication. So choose your inner dialogue carefully. Speak to yourself the way you'd speak to someone you love. That's how you rewire confidence from the inside out. Confidence is contagious. When you speak with certainty, you give others permission to believe in themselves too. Your calm inspires calmness. Your presence builds trust. Confidence isn't selfish. It's service through stability. You become an anchor in other people's storms. And that's what great communicators are. Anchors of peace in moments of chaos. So build your confidence through awareness, through honesty, through purpose. Speak slowly. Breathe deeply. Believe your own words before expecting others to. And remember, confidence doesn't come from being the best in the room. It comes from knowing you belong in the room. When that belief settles in your bones, your communication changes forever. Because you stop trying to sound confident. You become confidence itself. That's when your words stop seeking approval and start creating impact. That's when your voice becomes leadership. And that's when people start listening. Not because they have to, but because they want to. Chapter 12. The Language of Leadership. Leadership doesn't begin with authority. It begins with awareness. It's not about the power to command. It's about the ability to connect. True leaders don't speak to show dominance. They speak to build direction. Their words don't shout. They guide. Their tone doesn't control, it inspires. Because leadership isn't what you say to others. It's what your words awaken inside them. The language of leadership is built on clarity. When you speak, people must see the picture you see. They must feel the vision, not just hear it. Vague language creates confusion. Precise language creates movement. A leader doesn't use many words. They use meaningful ones. Every sentence carries purpose. Every pause carries presence. Because when your words carry weight, your people follow your silence as much as your sound. Great leaders understand that words are energy. Every sentence you speak either builds trust or breaks it. It either encourages or exhausts. That's why leadership begins with emotional intelligence. The awareness that communication is not just speaking. It's transmitting emotion. When your tone radiates calmness, your team feels safe. When your energy carries focus, your people gain clarity. When your words carry belief, your people begin to believe too. That's the true transfer of leadership. Energy before instruction. Leaders don't talk to impress. They talk to express. They express vision with simplicity. They express direction with confidence. They express care through presence. The best leaders communicate in a way that makes people say, "I understand where we're going, and I want to go there." That's influence through clarity, not control. The most powerful leadership language is honesty. When you tell the truth, even when it's hard, you build credibility. Because people don't follow perfect leaders. They follow authentic ones. Honesty creates trust, and trust creates loyalty. Once trust is built, your voice carries a power that no title can give. You no longer have to demand respect. You earn it, word by word. Leadership communication is less about talking and more about listening. Every time you listen deeply, you learn what people need. And when you respond to those needs, your words gain meaning. Listening doesn't make you passive. It makes you wise, because silence lets understanding grow. And when people feel heard, they listen back with open hearts. That's how leaders build followership, not through volume, but through validation. The language of leadership is always grounded in respect. Respect for ideas, respect for differences, respect for time and effort. When you speak respectfully, you don't have to force alignment. It happens naturally, because respect disarms resistance. It creates a shared space where voices can meet. That's the foundation of healthy communication. People don't remember how powerful your title sounded. They remember how valued they felt in your presence. A true leader knows when to speak and when to stay silent. Not every moment needs a message. Sometimes leadership is found in quiet observation. Sometimes silence is the loudest form of strength. When you speak too soon, you may react. When you wait, you respond with wisdom. Patience gives your words power, because the right message delivered at the right moment can change everything. Clarity in leadership communication means simplicity. The more complex your message, the less it moves people. Simplicity isn't weakness, it's mastery. It takes deep understanding to say something simply. When your words are clear, your vision becomes contagious. Because clarity feels like confidence, and confidence feels like safety. Leaders don't confuse people into obedience. They guide people into belief. The most powerful leaders speak with emotion under control. They know when to use passion and when to use peace. Anger may win attention, but calmness wins trust. When you lead through chaos, your voice becomes the anchor. Your tone tells people, we are steady, even when the world isn't. That's leadership through composure, the ability to stay centered while others lose balance. The language of leadership is purpose-driven. Every word serves a vision. Every conversation has direction. When you speak without purpose, you create noise. When you speak with purpose, you create movement. Leadership is not about having all the answers. It's about inspiring others to find them. Your job is not to do all the talking. It's to awaken all the voices. That's the difference between commanding and leading. Empathy is another language of leadership. When you speak from understanding, you bridge emotional gaps. Empathy doesn't make you soft. It makes you strategic. Because when people feel seen, they give their best. You can't lead those you don't understand, and you can't understand those you don't listen to. Empathy turns authority into influence. It turns leadership into legacy. Confidence in leadership communication comes from alignment, not ego. Ego says, I need to be right. Alignment says, we need to be effective. Ego creates friction. Alignment creates flow. When you drop the need to prove yourself, you gain the ability to move others. Because leadership isn't about winning. It's about guiding the win for everyone. That's what separates leaders from speakers. In moments of crisis, leadership language becomes even more powerful. When uncertainty rises, people don't need big speeches. They need calm, steady words that remind them of direction. A true leader communicates stability. Even when they don't have all the answers, they have reassurance. They don't deny difficulty. They balance truth with hope. That balance is leadership in motion, reality wrapped in courage. Leaders also understand the power of appreciation. Acknowledging effort builds loyalty. When you tell someone, I see your work, you give them the courage to continue. When you say, you made a difference, you make them want to do more. Recognition is not decoration. It's nourishment. The best leaders know that gratitude multiplies effort faster than criticism ever could. Leadership language is also consistent. Your team should never have to guess your values. When your message stays the same, in public and in private, people start trusting your integrity. Inconsistency breeds doubt. Consistency breeds respect. Leadership communication isn't about being liked. It's about being trusted. When your voice stands for truth, it stands tall, even in disagreement. A true leader knows that their words echo beyond the room. One careless comment can break morale. One conscious statement can rebuild faith. That's why leadership communication must always be intentional. You are never just talking. You are shaping culture. Every tone you use sets the emotional temperature of the space you lead. That's the silent responsibility of leadership. The greatest leaders speak less about power and more about purpose. They speak less about rules and more about values. They don't push people to obey. They pull people to believe. That's what the language of leadership feels like. It doesn't force movement. It inspires motion. When people start saying, "I want to do this," instead of "I have," you've succeeded as a communicator. Leadership communication is also legacy communication. Every word you speak plants a seed. Some grow immediately, others bloom years later. That's why wise leaders speak with awareness, knowing that their voice may outlast their presence. Your words can become someone else's courage. Your tone can become someone else's calm. That's how true leaders live on, through the echoes of their communication. So speak with intention, lead with empathy, listen with patience, guide with vision. Let your words be simple but strong, calm but commanding, gentle but grounded. Because in the end, leadership is not about how many people listen to you. It's about how many lives are changed because of what you said. That's the real language of leadership, spoken not just by the mouth, but by the mind, the heart, and the example you leave behind. Chapter 13. Creating harmony in the workplace. A workplace without harmony is just a room full of noise. People talk, but no one listens. Everyone works, but no one connects. True productivity doesn't come from pressure. It comes from peace. When people feel understood, they work with heart. When they feel safe, they bring ideas freely. And when they feel valued, they give their best. Harmony is not the absence of conflict. It's the presence of understanding. It's not about everyone agreeing. It's about everyone respecting. That's what transforms a workplace from ordinary to alive. Harmony begins with communication. Every misunderstanding that destroys teamwork starts with a word not spoken, a tone misunderstood, or a silence misread. When communication is honest and open, trust grows like sunlight. When it's guarded and fearful, mistrust spreads like shadow. A leader's job is to set the tone. When your communication is transparent, your team mirrors it. When you speak with patience, your people learn calmness, because energy travels faster than instruction. People don't just follow what you say, they follow how you say it. Harmony thrives where ego dies. No workplace can function when every person is fighting to be right. When ego enters, cooperation exits. The moment people stop competing and start collaborating, the real magic begins. You don't have to win every argument. You have to win alignment. The goal isn't to prove superiority, it's to build synergy. Harmony doesn't mean silence. It means balance. It's where every voice matters and every voice listens. Respect is the language of harmony. You can disagree without disrespect. You can correct without humiliation. You can lead without fear. Respect creates emotional safety, and emotional safety creates innovation. Because when people feel safe, they stop defending themselves and start expressing themselves. That's when creativity flows and productivity becomes natural. Respect isn't a soft skill. It's a survival skill for any organization that wants to last. In every team, there will be differences of ideas, personalities, backgrounds. Harmony doesn't erase differences. It organizes them into strength. Diversity without understanding creates chaos. But diversity guided by empathy creates brilliance. Everyone doesn't need to think alike. They just need to think together. Harmony grows when individuality is celebrated, not suppressed. Because unity isn't sameness, it's purpose shared through difference. To build harmony, leaders must master emotional awareness. When someone is quiet, it doesn't always mean they're fine. When someone is outspoken, it doesn't always mean they're confident. Leaders who listen beyond words hear what others miss. They sense tension early. They address problems before they grow roots. Because prevention is always easier than repair. Harmony doesn't survive on luck. It survives on awareness. Conflict is natural. It's not the enemy of harmony. It's the test of it. A team that never disagrees isn't harmonious. It's disconnected. Real harmony is when disagreement turns into discovery. When people argue ideas, not egos. When they can debate without dividing. It's not about avoiding friction. It's about managing it with maturity. That's what emotionally intelligent communication looks like. It doesn't hide tension. It transforms it into teamwork. Kindness is the strongest strategy for harmony. Not fake politeness, but genuine kindness, the kind that sees others as humans, not tools. You never lose by being kind. You only lose when pride blinds compassion. In every workplace, there are silent struggles. Someone overworked, someone unheard, someone unappreciated. Kind words don't cost anything, but they can save someone's day. They can restore balance faster than any meeting can. Kindness is not weakness. It's leadership in its purest form. Harmony also grows from boundaries. Without boundaries, people burn out. Too much pressure, too little rest. That's how good employees lose passion. Healthy boundaries protect energy, and protected energy protects harmony. You can't build peace if everyone's exhausted. Encourage balance. Respect personal time. Value recovery as much as performance. When people are rested, they don't just work harder, they work happier. That's harmony in action. Gratitude keeps teams united. Appreciation turns tension into trust. When you thank people, you remind them that their effort matters. Leaders who appreciate openly create loyalty quietly. Because people don't leave companies, they leave environments where they feel invisible. When gratitude becomes culture, harmony becomes habit. A thank you, spoken sincerely, can repair more relationships than policies ever could. Harmony also depends on fairness. Favoritism destroys morale. Transparency builds trust. Every team member must know that effort earns respect, not politics. When fairness becomes culture, people give their best willingly. They don't compete for approval. They collaborate for purpose. That's what harmony looks like in motion. Equal voice, shared responsibility, mutual respect. Leaders who communicate with empathy create workspaces that breathe peace. They replace blame with understanding. They replace pressure with purpose. When something goes wrong, they ask, "What can we learn?" Not who is at fault. That single question shifts the entire emotional climate of a workplace. Because harmony isn't built by rules. It's built by relationships. And relationships grow stronger when compassion replaces criticism. Harmony also depends on emotional honesty. You can't pretend everything's fine and expect peace to last. Honest communication, even hard conversations, strengthen bonds. You can tell someone they made a mistake without making them feel small. You can correct with care. You can lead with love. Honesty without empathy is brutality. Empathy without honesty is avoidance. Harmony needs both. Truth delivered with tenderness. Workplace harmony thrives in shared vision. When everyone understands the why, they align naturally. Purpose unites more than policy ever could. When people feel they're part of something meaningful, ego fades. They stop counting tasks and start creating impact. That's when a team transforms from employees to believers. Harmony isn't forced, it's inspired. Communication is the thread that holds harmony together. One careless tone can break it. One kind sentence can rebuild it. That's how fragile and powerful communication truly is. Every word you speak at work is a drop in the emotional atmosphere. Too much negativity clouds it. A little positivity clears it. Be mindful of what you add to the air, because energy multiplies, and your words are its seed. Harmony doesn't come from rules written on walls. It comes from values lived out loud. Values like patience, fairness, gratitude, empathy, spoken through actions every day. When people feel those values, they mirror them back. And soon, harmony becomes self-sustaining. You no longer have to demand teamwork. It becomes instinct. That's the beauty of a peaceful culture. It teaches itself. The true measure of harmony is not how quiet a workplace is. It's how alive it feels. A harmonious team laughs together. They solve problems together. They support each other when the world outside feels heavy. Harmony doesn't mean perfection. It means connection. And when connection becomes culture, success follows naturally. Because harmony isn't the goal. It's the foundation of everything that works. So speak with kindness. Listen with attention. Lead with empathy. And act with fairness. When your words heal instead of hurt, when your presence calms instead of commands, you create harmony effortlessly. Because harmony doesn't need to be forced. It simply grows where respect lives, where compassion breathes, and where truth feels safe to speak. That's the language of a healthy workplace, where peace fuels progress, and communication becomes connection. That's not just leadership, that's legacy.